In the dead of night on May 1st, 2011, while Navy SEALs were closing in on Osama bin Laden's compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, a far more terrifying realization was dawning on the officers at ISI headquarters in Islamabad. The world's most wanted man had been living less than a mile from Pakistan's premier military academy for years, and they either didn't know about it, or worse, someone did. Within hours, as the world celebrated, a darker question emerged in intelligence circles. How had RAW, India's spy agency, known about the compound months before the Americans acted? And if they knew, what else did they know? This single incident perfectly captures the deadly chess game that has been playing out between two of the world's most formidable intelligence agencies for over 7 decades. A shadow war fought in the darkness where a single mistake doesn't just cost careers, it costs lives. The rivalry between India's research and analysis wing and Pakistan's inter-services intelligence didn't begin with a formal declaration or a signed document. It was born from the blood-soaked partition of 1947, when the Indian subcontinent was carved into 2 nations, creating the world's most volatile border and setting the stage for an intelligence war that would span generations. But these agencies, as we know them today, took their modern form under very different circumstances. RAW emerged in 1968, a direct response to India's intelligence failures during the wars with China in 1962 and Pakistan in 1965. The Indian government realized that relying on the Intelligence Bureau, which was focused on internal security, left them blind to external threats. ISI, on the other hand, had been around much longer, established in 1948, just a year after Pakistan's creation. Initially, it was a modest military intelligence unit meant to coordinate between Pakistan's 3 armed services. But the agency truly came into its own during the 1980s under the leadership of Lieutenant General Akhtar Abdurrahman, who transformed ISI into a powerful organization that didn't just gather intelligence, but actively shape Pakistan's foreign policy. Unlike RAW, which operates under civilian control, ISI has always been dominated by serving military officers, giving it a more aggressive, militaristic approach to intelligence operations. This fundamental difference in structure and philosophy has defined how these 2 agencies operate and confront each other. The geographical reality of the subcontinent makes this rivalry particularly intense. India and Pakistan share a nearly 2,000-mile border, much of it disputed, especially in Kashmir. This isn't like the CIA and KGB facing off across the Iron Curtain with clear lines of separation. This is 2 nations separated by a border you can sometimes see across, where people speak similar languages, share cultural ties, and where intelligence operatives can blend in with relative ease. For RAW and ISI, the enemy isn't just close, they're right next door, and sometimes they're already inside. This proximity has made the India-Pakistan intelligence war uniquely personal and uniquely brutal. Agents don't just gather intelligence from a distance, they infiltrate, they recruit, they turn people against their own countries, and when they're caught, the consequences are severe. Kashmir remains the epicenter of this secret war. Both agencies have run extensive operations in this disputed territory for decades. ISI has allegedly trained and supported militant groups fighting Indian control, while RAW has worked to infiltrate these networks and support counterinsurgency operations. The region has become a laboratory for intelligence tradecraft, where every tactic from honey traps to assassinations has been employed. But the real complexity lies in the fact that both agencies aren't just fighting each other, they're fighting for hearts and minds, trying to build networks of informants and assets among the local population. Every shopkeeper, every student, every government official becomes a potential intelligence asset or a potential threat. The psychological warfare is as important as the physical operations. Afghanistan has been another critical battlefield in this shadow war. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979, both agencies saw an opportunity for ISI It was a chance to gain strategic depth against India and establish influence in a neighboring country with American backing and Saudi money. ISI coordinated the largest covert operation since World War II, training and arming the Mujahideen fighters who would eventually drive out the Soviets. RAW, meanwhile, was watching nervously as Pakistan gained this enormous influence. They began their own operations, supporting different factions, gathering intelligence, and trying to prevent Afghanistan from becoming a launching pad for anti-India activities. When a new ruling authority emerged in the region during the 1990s, India's intelligence agencies found themselves dealing with an increasingly challenging and unfriendly security environment along their extended frontier. Indian consulates in Afghan cities became, according to Pakistani allegations, hubs for raw operations against Pakistan. Meanwhile, Pakistan accused India of supporting insurgencies in Balochistan through Afghan soil. The methods these agencies employ read like something from a spy thriller, except the consequences are devastatingly real. Both RAW and ISI have mastered the art of human intelligence, the patient, dangerous work of recruiting spies within enemy territory, a clerk in a military office, a secretary in a government ministry, a businessman with political connections. Anyone with access to valuable information becomes a target. The recruitment process is sophisticated, often taking years. Intelligence officers identify potential assets, study their vulnerabilities, their financial troubles, their personal grievances, their ideological leanings, and then they make their approach. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's blackmail, sometimes it's appealing to their sense of patriotism or revenge. Once recruited, these assets live double lives, passing secrets while maintaining their cover, always knowing that discovery means imprisonment or death. The tradecraft doesn't end with recruitment. Both agencies have developed elaborate systems for communication with their assets. Dead drops in crowded markets, coded messages in newspaper advertisements, encrypted communications through seemingly innocent websites, and face-to-face meetings in third countries where surveillance is lighter. One of the most famous cases involved a raw asset codenamed Black Tiger, who allegedly provided crucial intelligence from within Pakistan's defense establishment. During the Kargil War in 1999, the information he passed helped India understand Pakistani positions and intentions, potentially saving countless lives. But when his identity was eventually compromised, he vanished, his fate remaining unknown to this day. A ghost in the machine of espionage. The fear of such penetration keeps both agencies constantly hunting for moles within their own ranks, creating an atmosphere of paranoia where trust becomes a luxury no one can afford. Technology has dramatically transformed this shadow war over the decades. In the early years, it was all about human intelligence, face-to-face meetings, physical documents, and microfilm hidden in everyday objects. But as technology advanced, so did the capabilities of both agencies. Signals intelligence became crucial, with both RAW and ISI investing heavily in intercepting communications, cracking codes, and monitoring electronic transmissions. The borders between India and Pakistan bristle with listening posts, sophisticated antenna arrays pointed at each other, capturing everything from military communications to civilian phone calls. Pakistan's ISI has long been suspected of monitoring communications in Kashmir, while RAW operates similar facilities along the line of control. The digital age brought new opportunities and new vulnerabilities. Cyber warfare has become the latest frontier in this conflict, with both agencies allegedly running sophisticated hacking operations against each other's government networks, military systems, and critical infrastructure. The human cost of this rivalry is staggering, though exact numbers will never be known because most of these operations remain classified. Decades after they occur, agents have been captured, tortured, and executed. Informants have disappeared without a trace. Diplomats have been expelled, and tit-for-tat espionage scandals. In 2016, India arrested Kulbhushan Jadhav, claiming he was a former naval officer, while Pakistan insisted he was a serving RAW operative, caught running sabotage operations in Balochistan. His capture became an international incident, with India taking the case to the International Court of Justice. Pakistan has made similar claims about capturing Indian spies over the years. While India has arrested numerous individuals accused of working for ISI, often linked to terrorist activities, each arrest is accompanied by dramatic press conferences, confessions that may or may not be genuine, and diplomatic protests. But behind each case is a human story, someone who made a choice, whether for money, ideology, or coercion, and paid the ultimate price. The most controversial aspect of this intelligence war involves the allegations of supporting terrorism and insurgencies. India has long accused ISI of being the puppet master behind various terrorist attacks on Indian soil, most notably the 2008 Mumbai attacks that killed over 160 people. According to Indian intelligence, ISI has provided training, weapons, funding, and strategic guidance to militant groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, using them as proxies to bleed India through 1,000 cuts. The evidence presented includes intercepted communications, testimony from captured terrorists, and financial trails leading back to Pakistan. Pakistan vehemently denies these allegations, claiming they are propaganda designed to malign the country internationally. However, even some Western intelligence agencies have privately acknowledged ISI's connections to certain militant groups, though they note the complexity of these relationships and question how much control ISI actually maintains over these organizations once they were created. Pakistan makes mirror accusations against RAW, claiming the Indian agency has been fomenting unrest in Balochistan, supporting separatist movements, and conducting sabotage operations against Chinese projects in Pakistan, particularly those related to the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Pakistani officials have displayed what they claim is evidence of RAW's involvement, including weapons, communication devices, and financial records allegedly recovered from arrested Indian agents. They accuse RAW of running operations from Indian consulates in Afghanistan, using Afghan soil as a base to destabilize Pakistan. India dismisses these claims as fiction, arguing that Pakistan is trying to deflect attention from its own support for terrorism and blame its internal problems on external forces. The truth, as always in intelligence matters, is probably more nuanced than either side admits publicly. Both agencies likely engage in activities that blur ethical and legal lines, justifying them as necessary for national security. The involvement of third countries adds another layer of complexity to this rivalry. Both RAW and ISI conduct operations far beyond the subcontinent, running spy networks in Europe, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and North America. These operations serve multiple purposes: gathering intelligence on each other's activities abroad, monitoring diaspora communities, conducting counterintelligence against enemy agents, and influencing international opinion. London, Dubai, Bangkok, and other major cities have become battlegrounds where Indian and Pakistani intelligence operatives watch each other, recruit assets, and occasionally engage in more aggressive actions. There have been mysterious deaths of Pakistani dissidents in European cities that India denies any involvement in, and suspicious accidents involving Indian nationals abroad that Pakistan claims no knowledge of. Intelligence officers operate under diplomatic cover in embassies and consulates, giving them immunity from prosecution, but also making them prime targets for surveillance by both the host country's security services and their rivals from across the border. The diplomatic world provides a veneer of civility to this brutal competition. Intelligence officers posted as diplomats attend the same receptions, smile politely at each other, and engage in careful conversations where every word carries multiple meanings. But beneath the surface, they're constantly probing for weaknesses, trying to identify the intelligence officers on the other side, attempting to recruit disgruntled staff members, and gathering any scrap of information that might prove useful. When a spy scandal erupts, diplomats are declared persona non grata and expelled, only to be replaced by new intelligence officers under different cover. It's a game that has been played for decades, with both sides knowing the rules but constantly trying to find loopholes and advantages. The psychology of this endless conflict has created a unique culture within both organizations. A culture of suspicion, dedication, and an almost obsessive focus on the enemy across the border. Officers in both RAW and ISI spend their entire careers studying their adversaries, learning their methods, analyzing their successes and failures, and developing countermeasures. They become so immersed in this world that the line between professional duty and personal vendetta often blurs. Veterans from both agencies speak about their counterparts with a mixture of respect and hostility, acknowledging their professionalism while remaining committed to defeating them. This creates a strange paradox where the people who understand each other best are sworn enemies, locked in a competition that neither can truly win, but neither can afford to lose. The institutional memory within these agencies runs deep, with lessons from operations decades ago still informing current strategy and tactics. Some of the most dramatic episodes in this rivalry have involved defections and double agents, the ultimate betrayal in the intelligence world. When an officer from one agency crosses over to the other side, they bring with them not just information, but insights into methods, operations, and most dangerously, the identities of other agents. There have been cases, though rarely publicized, where RAW officers have been turned by ISI and vice versa. The motivations vary. Disillusionment with their own agency, financial desperation, ideological conversion, or elaborate deception where an officer pretends to defect while actually running a complex double game. One legendary case involves an ISI officer who allegedly made contact with RAW in the 1990s, providing valuable intelligence for years before a suspicious death in Lahore, under circumstances that remain murky. Whether he was a genuine defector, a double agent, or someone playing both sides for personal gain remains a matter of speculation. These cases create waves of paranoia within both organizations, leading to intense internal investigations, and the tragic reality that sometimes innocent officers fall under suspicion, simply because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The role of technology companies and private contractors has become increasingly important in the shadow war. Both agencies now recruit technical experts from the private sector, offering them opportunities to serve their country in ways that go far beyond conventional military service. Hackers, software engineers, data analysts, and telecommunications experts find themselves drawn into operations that target everything from military networks to civilian infrastructure. The line between state-sponsored cyber operations and criminal hacking has become deliberately blurred, with both RAW and ISI allegedly using proxy groups and independent contractors to maintain plausible deniability. When a major data breach occurs at a Pakistani government ministry or an Indian defense contractor, the official investigation might point to criminal elements or unnamed foreign actors. But intelligence analysts on both sides know exactly who was responsible. The advantage of cyber operations is that they're difficult to attribute definitively, allowing both agencies to conduct aggressive actions while avoiding the diplomatic fallout that comes with getting caught red-handed in traditional espionage. Training for officers in both agencies reflects the deadly serious nature of their mission. RAW operatives undergo rigorous instruction at facilities whose locations remain classified, learning everything from advanced surveillance techniques to hand-to-hand combat. From psychological manipulation to cryptography, they study languages, particularly Urdu and regional Pakistani dialects, and immerse themselves in Pakistani culture, politics, and society until they can pass as locals. ISI training is similarly comprehensive, with officers learning Hindi and studying Indian society with the same intensity. Both agencies run elaborate mock scenarios, where trainees practice dead drops, brush passes, and other classic espionage techniques. They learn how to detect surveillance, how to recruit and handle assets, and critically, how to resist interrogation if captured. The training also includes a significant psychological component because working in intelligence especially against such a formidable adversary, takes a toll on mental health. Officers must learn to live with constant stress, to maintain cover stories that become like second identities, and to make split-second decisions where mistakes can cost lives. The families of intelligence. Officers pay their own price in this shadow war. Unlike regular government employees, intelligence operatives can't discuss their work at home, can't explain why they're suddenly transferred to distant posts, and often can't even reveal the true nature of their jobs to their spouses and children. They miss important family events because of operational requirements, maintain friendships that might actually be professional necessities, and live with the knowledge that their work could put their loved ones at risk. There have been cases where family members of intelligence officers have been targeted, sometimes through surveillance, sometimes through more direct intimidation. Both RAW and ISI maintain strict protocols to protect the families of their operatives, but in the interconnected world of the subcontinent, keeping such secrets is increasingly difficult. Children grow up knowing their parent does something important but dangerous, something that can't be discussed, and they learn to live with the anxiety that comes with that knowledge. The economic dimension of this intelligence rivalry is substantial, though rarely discussed in public. Both India and Pakistan dedicate significant resources to their intelligence operations, resources that could theoretically be used for development, education, or healthcare. The exact budgets of RAW and ISI remain classified, but estimates suggest both agencies receive hundreds of millions of dollars annually, with ISI's budget being particularly opaque, since it's buried within Pakistan's defense spending. These funds pay for everything from satellite imagery and communication intercepts to the more mundane expenses of running spy networks, safe houses, front companies, and paying informants. There's also the hidden cost of failed operations, blown covers, and the constant need to develop new technologies and methods as the other side adapts. Critics in both countries question whether this massive investment in intelligence warfare actually makes their nations more secure or simply perpetuates a cycle of hostility that benefits no one except the intelligence agencies themselves. The impact on regional stability extends far beyond the India-Pakistan relationship. Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and even the Maldives have found themselves drawn into this intelligence competition, with both RAW and ISI conducting operations on their soil, and sometimes interfering in their internal affairs. These smaller nations often lack the sophisticated counterintelligence capabilities to effectively monitor what Indian and Pakistani operatives are doing within their borders, making them attractive venues for proxy conflicts. Bangladesh presents a particularly complex case study in this intelligence rivalry. After its independence from Pakistan in 1971, a war in which RAW played a significant role supporting the Mukti Bahini freedom fighters, the country became a crucial strategic space for both agencies. India views Bangladesh as a friendly neighbor and has worked to maintain close intelligence cooperation, sharing information about militant groups and cross-border terrorism. But ISI has never abandoned its interest in Bangladesh, allegedly working to cultivate relationships with Islamist political parties and maintaining networks that can be activated when needed. The 2016 Dhaka cafe attack, which killed 22 people, including several foreigners, exposed the presence of sophisticated terrorist networks in Bangladesh, and both Indian and Pakistani intelligence agencies were accused of having prior knowledge or even involvement, though concrete evidence remained elusive. For Bangladesh, caught between two intelligence giants, the challenge is maintaining sovereignty while navigating the demands and suspicions of both sides. Sri Lanka experienced this dynamic during its brutal civil war with the Tamil Tigers. RAW initially supported Tamil militant groups in the 1980s, providing training and weapons, partly in response to Sri Lankan cooperation with Pakistan, and partly due to pressure from Tamil politicians in India. But when the insurgency spiraled out of control, and a RAW-trained militant assassinated Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi in 1991, India's policy shifted dramatically. Meanwhile, ISI saw an opportunity to gain influence in Sri Lanka by offering counterterrorism assistance and weapons to the Sri Lankan military. The island nation became another chessboard, where Indian and Pakistani intelligence played out their rivalry, with devastating consequences for ordinary Sri Lankans caught in the crossfire. Even after the civil war ended in 2009, both agencies maintain a presence in Colombo, monitoring each other's activities and competing for influence with the Sri Lankan government. Nepal and the Maldives have faced similar pressures, with both RAW and ISI attempting to influence their politics and security policies. Nepal's delicate position between India and China makes it particularly sensitive, and any perceived ISI presence triggers alarm bells in New Delhi. The Maldives, despite being a small island nation, has strategic importance in the Indian Ocean, and the competition for influence there has intensified in recent years. When political crises erupt in these countries, observers can often detect the subtle fingerprints of intelligence operations in the background, though proving direct involvement is nearly impossible. This pattern reflects a broader reality. The ISI RAW rivalry has essentially regionalized, turning South Asia into a complex web of intelligence operations, where every country must navigate between these two powerful agencies while trying to protect their own interests. The question of accountability haunts both organizations. Intelligence agencies, by their very nature, operate in secrecy, but this secrecy can easily become a shield for activities that might not survive public scrutiny or democratic oversight. In India, RAW reports directly to the Prime Minister and operates with minimal parliamentary oversight. The agency's budget isn't publicly disclosed, its operations aren't subject to regular review, and its officers enjoy significant protection from prosecution. ISI faces even less oversight, functioning essentially as an autonomous power center within Pakistan's military establishment. This lack of accountability has led to allegations that both agencies sometimes pursue their own agendas, which may not always align with their government's stated policies. There have been instances where intelligence operations have embarrassed their own governments, created diplomatic crises, or backfired spectacularly. Yet the officers responsible rarely face consequences because of the shield of secrecy that protects them. The future of this rivalry is being shaped by emerging technologies that previous generations of spy masters could barely imagine. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are revolutionizing intelligence analysis, allowing agencies to process vast amounts of data and identify patterns that human analysts might miss. Facial recognition technology, combined with the proliferation of surveillance cameras, makes it increasingly difficult for agents to operate undetected. Biometric databases mean that false identities are harder to maintain. Quantum computing promises to break encryption methods that currently protect sensitive communications, potentially exposing decades of secret messages. Both RAW and ISI are investing heavily in these technologies, racing to gain advantages while also defending against the same capabilities being turned against them. The next generation of intelligence officers will need to be as comfortable with algorithms and data science as they are with traditional tradecraft, representing a fundamental shift in how espionage is conducted. Social media has become both a tool and a vulnerability for intelligence operations. Agents can use social media to research targets, identify potential recruits, and spread disinformation, but their own digital footprints can also betray them. Both agencies have established sophisticated social media monitoring capabilities, tracking not just their adversaries but also their own citizens for signs of radicalization or foreign recruitment. The rise of encrypted messaging apps like WhatsApp and Signal has made communication more secure, but also more challenging for intelligence agencies trying to monitor terrorist plots or espionage activities. This technological cat-and-mouse game shows no signs of slowing down, with each new innovation creating opportunities for intelligence collection, while simultaneously creating new vulnerabilities that must be defended against. Despite decades of conflict, There have been rare moments of cooperation between RAW and ISI, usually when faced with a common threat. After the 9/11 attacks, there was a brief period of intelligence sharing focused on Al-Qaeda, though this cooperation was limited and quickly broke down as mutual suspicions resurfaced. Some retired officers from both agencies have privately expressed frustration at the waste and futility of their endless rivalry, suggesting that if India and Pakistan could find a way to cooperate rather than compete, both nations would be more secure. But such voices remain rare, and the institutional momentum of 7 decades of hostility is difficult to overcome. The agencies themselves have become invested in maintaining the rivalry, which justifies their budgets, their influence, and their very existence. The human stories behind this shadow war are what make it truly compelling. Every statistic represents a person who made choices, took risks, and faced consequences. The intelligence officer who spends years building a covert identity, living a lie so deep that they sometimes forget who they really are. The informant in Lahore or Mumbai who passes secrets knowing that discovery means death. The analyst who pieces together fragmentary information to prevent an attack, saving lives without anyone ever knowing their contribution. The family that lives with constant uncertainty, never knowing if their loved one will come home. These are the real stakes of the ISI RAW rivalry. Beyond the geopolitical abstractions and strategic calculations, it's a conflict fought in the shadows by people whose names will never be known, whose sacrifices will never be publicly acknowledged, and whose work continues regardless of whether peace or war prevails on the surface. And as long as India and Pakistan remain adversaries, this shadow war will continue, invisible to most but absolutely real to those who fight it.